Good evening. It is a little after 6 p.m. on January 8th. I'll call this meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order and ask that everybody rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Oh, there he is.
Nope, oh, wait.
Does he have to say the
Welcome.
pledge by himself now?
Yeah.
What's that? You have to say the pledge by yourself because you missed it.
That's as far as we've gotten, so we're on the first order of business.
Okay.
So the first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the December 20th, 2018 meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes as written.
So moved. Second?
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Next item, approval of the warrants. I'll entertain a motion to approve school warrant number 1032 for $118,845.29. General warrant number 1033 for $105,005.94. Payroll warrant number 14 for $323,191.33.
So moved. Second?
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
No financial items. Not anything financially, right, at this point? Letters, did that letter go out to
It's
the?
going out this week.
Okay. So old business, letter from emergency management regarding their director. They're looking to appoint Ann Adams as the director of emergency management and remove Doug Blood from emergency management as he's moved out of town and hasn't attended a number of meetings. We asked them to provide us with 3 names, and they provided us with 1 name. Ann Adams, who's the deputy director.
Mm-hmm.
So, your thoughts?
Wonder if we can put out a plea for someone else to step up and either join, or if maybe Doug would want to stay on and become more active.
Well, I think if Doug's out of town, and he didn't express interest in staying on when I talked to him, so I don't necessarily have a problem with appointing Ann, but I'd like to have her come in and talk to us about scheduling to get all the bills and stuff taken care of in an orderly or speedy fashion.
What the actual duties are.
Yeah, exactly. Because when they miss those things, Leslie gets stuck with it, and it's not appropriate for that either.
It's not a happy conversation.
Okay, so, you
Should
ready
we
to
talk
take
with her
action? Or?
first? Should we talk with her first and see if she's willing to
Yeah,
do the duties and then
because I
appoint
think what they were supposed to do originally when Doug was still on was he was going to be the director, but she was going to come in and take care of the bills and all that stuff. But we just got one today.
Doug came in today and paid everything.
Doug did.
Mhm.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
And he was at the fire last week on Nursery Ave.
Nursery, yep.
Interesting.
Well, that's why I say he still is involved, just sporadic or whatever, but,
Do you want to call him? Doug?
Call him and talk to him before we take
Yeah.
action?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. Just touch base with him and see what his
yeah.
intention is or
Yeah.
desire is.
And then we can have a meeting with Ann. If he's not interested, and go over the duties and see if she'll follow through on them.
Okay. Do we step it back one week?
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
Okay.
So the next televised meeting, we're gonna do, you think?
You can do that. That's 2 weeks. All right, we good on that?
Yep.
New business. We are having a special town meeting on January 25th, which was called originally for the school department. They are looking for $134,000 to send one student to a special education class. So it is on the warrant for the 25th to discuss. So I guess we'll wait for that meeting to discuss the merits of it. Unless you want to say anything further on that?
No.
The finance committee's met on it. The finance committee's talked about it. They have a very strong opinion of it. So we will let them speak to the town at the town meeting. Article number, how do you have them ordered?
Number two,
So,
that's number
yeah, number
two.
2 is the money. Number 1 is, there is a spending mechanism for these special education programs. So the school is responsible for special education money. It's gonna come out of the school budget. It's similar to the stabilization accounts that we have. It's for school stabilization. So Article 1 is to see if the town wants to establish one of these stabilization accounts so we can start putting money in for when one of these special education needs come up. It's not such a big hit all at once. So that's number 1. Number 2 is for the money. And then Article 3 is air packs for the fire department. The fire department air packs are at the end of their life. They cannot be certified anymore. I guess we're a few years past and the chief's been able to get them certified through his contacts, but they're at the end of their life cycle. We need to replace them. We've tried for grants a few times and we have not gotten them. I believe it's because we get so much money for the fire truck that they're not inclined to give us any more grants for this. They approached the finance committee and Kristen Walther of the finance committee looked at a couple of lease options and beat them up pretty good for a very good deal. So an interesting fact, and it'll be brought up at the town meeting, I'm sure, by the fire department, but the firefighter that died in Worcester had one of these end-of-life cycle type air packs that had 30 minutes of air. The new ones that we're getting for the fire department are hopefully getting under this are 45 minutes. Had this firefighter had one of these packs of 45 minutes, he would have survived. So we think we owe it to our firefighters to keep them safe, so we're looking for the authority to enter into a lease for the purchase of these. So that is Article 3.
Was it like 22 of them? I think that was the number, 22 packs that
Yeah,
they need to replace.
yeah,
And they're all at the end of the cycle.
yep.
And they've been
that's,
limping them along. I think it would be good to keep the firemen safe. If we can.
Yeah, well, from where we sit, when they had the fire last week, I know I was very nervous knowing that these packs are questionable and knowing that people lived in that house and the extent that it was, I was a little nervous for a bit of time, so. So that's what's going to be on the warrant. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the warrant.
So moved.
Second?
Anybody have anything they wanted to say on it?
I had a quick question. The actual article, is it to vote on the special ed student? Is it to vote whether or not to take funds from the school budget or to take funds from somewhere else, or is the vote to fund it at all?
To find money in the general budget somewhere to give to the school. $134,000.
Okay, so is there a mandate that it be funded and the vote is how to fund it, or is it up to the voters to decide whether or not we even have to do it?
Yeah, so I reached out to town council for our options here. Because in our mind, you could employ 3 teachers for that amount of money.
Sure.
And you could get 1 teacher and put this kid in the classroom with one-on-one teacher education for a third the price. So the thing is, the school committee has sole control over the school budget. So as a town at a town meeting, we couldn't tell them, this is what we're gonna do. It's up to them. We can vote to not fund it, or vote against funding it, in which case the school has to find the money in their budget as it sits right now, which they're gonna cut programs or whatever they're gonna do. But it will force them to take a harder look at it.
Yep.
Or you can fund any portion of that. So if during the discussion, they say, well, we can buy a teacher at 45,000, so we think we'll fund it at 45,000.
Yep.
Somebody can make a motion on that, to that effect.
All right, that answers my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
As far as the impacts go, any like rough estimate as to what the cost is?
Yeah, that was.
They
over.
were $8,500
A piece?
until Kristen dickered with the 2 companies,
Yep.
and one company came down to like 7,000 each, and I believe there was 22, that number rings a bell, that they were talking about, so do 22 times
The
7.
math, right. Secondly, would Healthwise through their community initiative be willing to,
Yep, that's the plan.
We thought of that too, but so far we have nothing from them.
okay.
You hate to spend the money that's not,
Well, no, I was
we
just-
don't have the
this is
bag
the
yet,
last meeting
so
we went to at the
Right.
police station, they
Yeah.
were, you know.
hopefully that
Jim had
comes.
mentioned that,
Yep.
so I
Yep.
was just curious
Hopefully
if
it
that was
comes.
still in play.
Well, we haven't received any money because they haven't been selling anything yet, so once they start selling, we'll get the money. But the plan is, if we lease them, it's a 5-year lease, and once we do get money from them, we'll approach them to pay that off.
Cool.
That's the plan.
They were willing to lease them to us. So you have to put it all out at once.
Mhm.
Anything else before we move on? Request for Holden funds. Let's see this. Okay. Is this just from the fire department? That's the only request?
Yes. The police chief paid for some, I think some upgrades to his, AEDs. And then he got the, I think he got the Narcan too.
So we did divide up that money, right?
Some
We
of it.
appropriated some of it?
Yeah,
Some of it.
a couple months ago.
Yeah. Somebody thought-
Yeah.
Right, the police chief had requested some of it. And
Okay.
that's what's left is 9,900.
So the fire department is requesting as much Holden funds as possible. They had a serious drop from the subscription drive. We use these funds as part of our budget to pay for workman's comp. Any funds from that source would be a huge assistance in keeping our budget solid as in the past. What do we have?
There's 9,900 in there right now. After buying what the police chief asked for.
Second page up here.
Do we know what his workman's comp numbers are? Or is that a sliding scale thing, or is that a set price at the
I have no
beginning?
idea. They're a private corporation. They aren't real open with their books.
Yeah, but how does workman's comp work usually?
Based on payroll.
Based on payroll.
Okay,
yeah.
so it's a percentage.
And the job, whatever the
Okay.
job is, right?
Yeah, like an insurance plan, right? So, insuring against injury.
Right, some jobs are more dangerous than others.
Or maybe we can have Joe estimate what he needs, instead of giving him the full amount that we have left.
Yeah. or leave a little bit in there just in case something else comes up before June. We'll get another allotment in July 1st, we'll get another allotment, but.
Yeah, so do you wanna, go back to him and ask
Sure.
for
Yeah.
a specific number?
See what
of-
he-
like, see how much.
He says as much as he can get. What does that mean?
Right, right,
99.74.
Right, yeah.
right.
All right, we'll ask him and,
Okay.
take that up again at the next meeting also.
Okay.
All right. The next item is, everybody's here for, I would imagine.
What's that?
So, Malink and our municipal solar projects. So Malink sent an email seeking an extension. Evidently, what happened was the state of Massachusetts, oh, here it is. The state requested that a transmission level study be conducted by National Grid, because there's so many solar projects coming online now, they need to do a transmission level study. We first learned about it on November 28th, but we are hoping to get insight into timelines. And this will impact our agreement because the original lease was executed on 4/25/17. The end of the diligence term and notice of development was on 10/25/17. And the current end date for this development term is 4/25. There's no way they're gonna be able to start that because this transmission level study is going to take a significant amount of time. So, they are asking for an extension based on the force majeure clause in the contract. So the force majeure clause, suspends and excuses time periods set forth in the contract while the applicable party is prevented or substantially hindered or restricted by event of force majeure. And that's usually some kind of catastrophic event that's out of their control, acts of God, hurricanes, floods. In this case, they say it means strikes, lockouts, other labor disturbances, acts of God or the elements, conditions attributable to acts of war, terrorism or civil disturbances, or any similar matter or condition beyond the reasonable control of the applicable party. So that's what they are seeking.
I didn't hear anywhere in there that, about National Grid survey.
And I'm inclined to agree. I don't think it applies. I think we've been very patient.
I think they've strung us along long enough,
I think so.
and I'd like to cut them loose. If we don't sign this, do they go away? If we don't give them an extension, at no
Correct.
cost to the town,
Yep. Yep. In my opinion, they haven't met their deadlines because of their own feet dragging.
Well, they haven't done anything yet.
They haven't, and we haven't heard from them, and I'd be inclined to just let this go away.
I move to not extend it.
I'd second that.
Anybody?
Any comments?
Are you opposed to this?
Yeah,
Is anybody,
not opposed, but
anybody?
What you're saying is absolutely right, because if you look at the timeline, they RFP'd this in 2015.
Yeah.
How many solar arrays have gone up and are operating in town, okay? And timeline-wise, delivery of closeout documentation, 5/31/18. Boy, they missed that deadline.
The planning board
And
has
then-
signed
and
off
then
on a lot
This
of,
force majeure thing, right? So they were also supposed to do utility interconnect review and approval on 11/30/16 to 5/31/17. I mean, how long do you wait?
Yeah,
How
So
long do
their
you
thing
wait?
actually was up in November, and they're just asking for us now to, the extension was up in November,
no, 4/25/19 is the end of the development term.
or the end?
So they're in their development term and they need to develop it by 4/25/19.
And they can't,
There's no way they can.
right.
And that's it, and National Grid won't let them go forward because they need to complete this transmission level study.
Right.
So,
That's not an act of God or terrorism or any of that stuff that you read there.
you know, and I think it's probably, a tortured exercise to try to get it to fit, and I won't even try to justify it, so,
Anybody else?
I'm at a point.
If we nix this, it's gonna be okay with you guys?
You want me to do handstands?
No, I'm just asking before we,
I wanna see that.
No, or to sing,
before
sing
we
David
vote,
Bowie's song Heroes.
before we vote to not sign it. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. I just
Did you have something to say
No,
other than that?
I want to agree
Disagree?
with Mr. Tripp and yourself,
Okay.
Mr. Kiley, that I think these people, I mean, the solar industry has several bad actors in the sense that, not just for the public that we're talking about here, but some of the private, they basically get some agreement from the landowner or whatever, and then they try to sell it to somebody else, and it just goes on, and at some point, you gotta fish or cut bait.
Mhm.
And I think this is not gonna be the end of it if you were to approve it, which sounds like you're not, which is great. I think in 6 months, we're gonna be sitting in the same room with the same problem.
Yep.
You know, it's-
I agree.
It's obvious to anyone,
Yep.
so.
Good. Pete?
Dennis, why don't you go? All right, I just, this is now, this was my spiel for tonight, I'm not gonna make a whole big spiel.
Thank you.
But, are you aware of, chapter 79, chapter 79, or 59, and the 45th clause in that? It's exemptions for solar energy. Oxford, Charlton, Barry
Sunday
just got
paper?
a check for
Yeah, it was in the Sunday
$77,000
Yep.
in tax money that they had to return to the Quabbin Solar LLC.
Yep.
And now, Charlton stands to lose almost $1 million in tax revenue.
Right.
And I realize, and Barry had a pilot program, so I don't, you know better how these negotiations, but the Mass Appellate Tax Board has been having hearings. These solar companies have been going there. And I have the 45th thing here, and it just simply says, any solar or wind-powered system or device which is being utilized as a primary or auxiliary power system for the purpose of heating or otherwise supplying the energy needs of property taxable under this chapter, provided, however, that the exemption under this clause shall be allowed only for the period of 20 years from the date of installation till of such system or device. So what, and we all know that they last 20 years, so for 20 years, they get a tax exemption from paying taxes, and, you know, they're just, these solar fields, and again, I'm not against solar fields, I've talked to the Catholic Church and people with the Catholic Church, and putting the array up there in that field is not gonna disturb me terribly if they get to it, I guess. It will be if they start cutting trees and coming down the road, but, so that they're not as the, and this is the article in the paper, it was Sunday's Telegram, the silver lining dims, and, it's just amazing. Charlton feels that they've lost, they may lose, the problem is with local assessors boards now don't have the authority to tax property as they see fit. The Mass Appellate Board has simply said, and Charlton is going to the board over this. They assume that they're going to lose, and they assume that it's gonna cost them thousands of dollars to challenge it.
Barry didn't challenge it, they argued that it was $67,000 worth chump change or something, like when, they didn't quite say it that way, but it was, because of the pilot program, it wasn't as big a loss as it looks. But Charlton and Oxford could be, and there are quotes from Goby and Durand in here, so they happen to be in our district too, so, I mean, it's something that's happening, and it's something, just when when you get the new company, or if you are going on with it, really take into account, and Pete was mentioning that somewhere in the Mealing thing, there was a clause where they could take advantage of tax incentives, and that we couldn't do anything about it. So it's something to look at down the road. These guys are trying to do good things, but they're also trying to make money for the stockholders
Yeah,
and
without a
so
doubt.
forth, so.
It all hinges on how it's taxed. My understanding is if they tax it as personal property,
Right.
then they're exempt.
Right.
If they're using it to
Right.
power the school or whatever the deal is.
And it was Honey Farms.
Yeah,
It
the
was
power
the
Honey Farms.
Honey Farms in Barry
Yeah, so,
was the,
well, which diminishes money that we would have seen. I think it kind
Yeah.
of cuts against anything. Plus, we're in a better fiscal spot now, so I don't think anybody's gonna have any heartburn over it.
We
so.
just have to make sure we don't tax it poorly.
We do it the right
The
way.
new
Yeah, we have a
ones.
pilot.
We do it the right
a
way.
pilot,
Yep.
We do
right.
pilot
Yep.
agreements, yeah.
Yep.
Pete?
First of all, I commend the decision. This has been a long time. I think the board's been very patient. To your credit, none of you were really involved with the original negotiations. I think that this is something that you've sort of inherited. I think over the course of a couple of years, you've had a lot of behaviors on both sides of the fence. And I think it just reeks of, it's time to part ways. It's time to think about starting fresh. Maybe even talk to other companies that are just even more aligned with some of the values that we have in town. Dennis's point about the tax piece, the T&G's here tonight, they wrote the article, right? Everybody read it, and everybody went, holy smokes, some of these commercial arrays that they had counted on lease payments, great, but also counted on tax payments, because now commercial property are now being reneged. And Dale, I mean, you're gonna look at the lease agreement, you're gonna see the provision in here that specifically gives them the right, after it's signed, to go back and negotiate with tax authorities any benefits that we could lose out on. So if for no other reason, if you get pushback on force majeure, you get pushback saying, you know what, things have changed for us too. And this lease agreement in its current form is done. It's just too many things in there that has a lot of bad blood. So I think the decision is extremely commendable, and I think we as an organization would certainly support the board if you ever wanted to look at other avenues to pursue. I mean, there's nothing wrong with maybe looking at credit arrays just on the police station, or the school, or the pump house.
Well, now that you've mentioned it, Pete.
Do we need to do the motion
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and vote this in first, and then we can go on to Symbiont? Want to do that?
Been moved and seconded.
It's been moving seconded.
Yeah, I
I was
mean-
just letting them have their say.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, we'll put our money where our mouths are. If it's about winning and revenue and winning for the town and preserving our infrastructure and getting it so everybody comes to a good place, we're all for that. So I'm hoping that a motion tonight puts this behind us. I'm cautiously optimistic that it will. I wouldn't be surprised if you get some pushback and we all might be here again at some point, but hold your ground. I believe you guys can do it, and I believe that, you have the right to do it, certainly, and,
yeah, no, it sounds to me like, if all they could come up with is the force majeure clause, they really don't have a leg to stand on, they know
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah, and we all know, they're a small company, they're privately owned, they're coming out and they're spearheading certain projects. We all know the sole intention at or around when they dig, they're gonna flip it. And then you're dealing with big companies with shareholders, bottom line, and it's not about a small company doing what's right for our town anymore. So with all that, again, thank you, I think it's a great outcome.
all right, motion's been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's a done deal.
It's my phone.
All right, so, now that you've mentioned
Does it?
I wanted
alternates,
to get that out of the way. Just,
why, are we gonna change our mind?
gosh, I hope not.
Yeah.
We signed an expression of interest. We were approached by another energy company called Symbiont Energy. And they are an environmental, they build themselves an environmentally conscious solar company. And they approached us expressly to put solar on the landfill. So we have met with the Board of Health. John Alphin was surprisingly on board. So we've met a couple of times. We signed an expression of interest. They're looking into it. They're going to give us a design for the landfill. And the money is there to make the fixes. The Board of Health is bringing it up to speed. So we're thinking if we start this project and the project to get the DEP certified, they may all come together at some point in a year or two. At this point, it's just an expression of interest. We haven't signed anything that binds us to these people. So they're gonna give us a proposal. And then at that point, once we have a proposal and once we see what it looks like, we have to go out to RFP and open it up to bids. And but at least we'll have a plan or some kind of a conceptual thing.
This is for the landfill, strictly landfill right now. So while they're out here on their walkthrough, we may show them a couple other things.
Yeah.
Police department roof, school parking lot, canopies, if they do it, we don't know what these guys do, but they're all about, and this is, we had 2 conference calls, they're all about not cutting down the forest. They're using brownfields and open space, which is landfills, et cetera.
Yeah, it's an
So,
awesome value.
it
statement.
sounds like,
Yeah, I think he's representative of our town,
yep, yep,
right?
All under the watchful eye of John Tripp, by the way.
I will be watching. I'm here for 2.5 more years, so.
Brad?
Yeah, where are they from? Symbiont?
That's a good, I tried to pull it up.
Illinois, I think. I think it was Illinois.
That sounds right, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they reached out to us, so we heard what they had to say because the pitch was, we want to put something on your landfill, that's what they do. So it'll be, they can't break the cap, so they do those big block standard things, and since there was support for that originally, I thought it was worth listening to, so we listened to them.
Yeah, we talked about screening, they can screen it with fencing, with the slats in the fence, and I brought up
Sure.
a ton of questions for these guys over the phone, so.
Well, I can see the headline tomorrow on the TNG already, just moving from where we were to where we are, and the board recognizing some of the issues, especially around this tax issue. This is fresh off the press, and if this board is one of the first to react to it, I think that's gonna be a good thing.
You're gonna make us look good, right, Brad? Yeah, Doug.
I'd just like to say I'm in favor of that, going forward with looking at the solar array on the landfill. When I was on the planning board, I was in favor of going in that direction. I was told by a former selectman that it was an impossibility. It was, I should just stick my head back in the hole that I came from. And it's good to.
conversation too.
It's up to the DEP, not just
No,
John
I-
Alphin and
I-
us. If the DEP okays it going on there, we're good to go.
Right,
So
but
it's,
my only concern, if there's, and I say I'm all in as far as this, my only concern was at the time, they said that, I was told, okay, I was told, or the planning board was told, that we had kind of cheaped out on the capping of the landfill. Now, I understand, and I knew then you didn't have to dig down to do this, so you don't have to penetrate some of these surfaces to do it, and I understand that. But I just, still lingering in the back of my mind is there still some kind of an issue with the landfill? I understand the DEP.
That's
If the
DEP.
DEP gives us a thumbs
Yep.
up, I think it's a
Yep.
no-brainer that we go ahead.
they could squish it when they come out, but hopefully, we can get it all squared
Yeah.
away and
We were
Yeah.
told there were 5 impediments to certification of the landfill for that use. And all but 2?
I think there's 2 swales
Two,
that need to be
yeah.
redone.
And the money's there, the town approved the money in the budget, so the money's there. Board of Health is moving forward. Their only handcuff at this point is, our engineers aren't moving, and they say they've been on them, but they move at their own pace.
It's a paperwork
so-
snafu.
Yeah, so, once that gets straightened out and we get the fixes done, then it's just a matter of the DEP certifying it. So, that's.
So as we
that.
go forward, you guys will be informed on what's
More than happy to help.
coming up.
Beautiful.
I got a little something kind of, I've been thinking about, I mentioned it before, now that this solar project is probably gonna go away, specifically to Brickyard Rose site. I'd like to see there's not some process we can apply to get maybe that parcel added to, say, like the town forest system as a recreational property, being connected to the rail trail and the, you know, historic significance of that area, specifically Wilcott Pond and such, you know.
Were you the one that suggested that? As a- who-
I think,
who's-
I think it was Jeff.
Jeff brought it up.
Jeff did.
They're all in a secret.
Because
I remember hearing it, making it an add-on to the rail trail.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think,
No, I think, you know, Jeff brought a really good point up there.
Yeah.
It may
Be a
be the
perfect
terminus
spot.
of the rail trail, depending on what's happened in East Brookfield there.
Mhm.
It's a nice wooded parcel, it's connected to the pond, you know, it's,
How would they go about getting that protected in perpetuity if somebody wanted to write a,
yeah, it goes
for
in
one
front
of the town meetings?
Just like
Town
the
meeting.
article on the town, put it into,
Is it too late to do it for this one?
For the January one?
Yeah.
well, I
Oh,
don't
God,
think
yeah.
there's
Is
a
it-
big
yeah, I
area.
don't know how long-
It's
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the spring, right?
Yeah.
So
I
when's the
think
next, when's the next town
May.
meeting?
I think
May.
I'd let the
May.
latest.
The end of March is,
Expire.
Yeah, I'd wait till the May town meeting anyway.
yeah,
They have no,
Well, they got a contract until the first of April, so I would put an article after the first. That's just fine.
for,
yeah,
what was it,
for
for,
the May meeting,
25.
write it up.
April 25th.
for 25?
Town meeting, when's the annual town meeting?
May,
May?
first Monday, first Friday in May.
The first
So-
Friday after the first Monday.
After the
Not
full
necess-
moon.
right, not necessarily the first Friday.
This is true, yeah. All right,
So there's another thing to do.
We can talk about maybe formalizing any
Yeah.
of the parcels officially.
Yeah.
Okay, so, anybody have any other things to bring before the board?
Public comment period? So we're,
That's where we're headed, yep. Outside of what we just discussed? No? We're all good? All single issue people?
Our demise was greatly exaggerated. We saw Malik print again and,
Yep.
I think Dennis is gonna do handstands now.
no.
Good thing somebody read the window, right, Dennis?
But if you still wanna adjust with the window, I have one of these.
I still would have.
All right, some announcements. John, you wanna do the,
Tuesday, January 15th, 2019 is the last day to register to vote at the town clerk's office, 215 North Main Street. They are open from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's for the special town meeting on January 25th, 2019. So we want to see everybody at the town meeting. And then some, bring
Yeah.
your friends and.
yeah, because that's a big number, so people need to be heard on it, where you stand.
for one person?
So it's a special ed placement, behavioral problems, I guess. And the school isn't giving us much information, I guess, which is troublesome for decision makers, like the finance committee doesn't like that at all. What we do know is that the money is for a van, a driver, tuition at this school, and a monitor that must be on the van at all times with this child. There's already a van going to this school with another student, but they say they can't be on the same van at the same time, even with a monitor. Somebody from the school will, obviously, the school committee will be there to answer further questions to the extent that they'll give information.
Do we
But
know how
that's-
old the child is?
We don't. That's one of the things the finance committee asked, and they declined to answer because, from their perspective, they wanted to know how long we have to pay for this. Is it a junior and we get 2 years this year and next year? There's a kid in the 8th grade. Are we looking at a long term?
Right through college.
So, I guess it's a transitional school, so they get remediated somehow, addressed, and come back. But the school will know more information on that. Dennis? Dennis?
Yeah, I just, as a teacher, and I know where Pete was coming from, but that's gonna be a difficult town meeting, but, I read in the papers today, I'm a reader of papers, and Charlie Baker is trying to advance the funding problems that come out of the State House. I mean, for years, education throughout the state has been underfunded, and he's now seeking to speed that process up. How fast it happens, or if it happens at all, is another thing. I mean, it's just, the funding formula just doesn't fit anymore,
Yeah.
because of things like this.
Yeah,
They're unforeseen. I mean, we had in Hudson kids that cost us the same thing, 3 or 4 kids that would totally blow the budget because they had to be sent out. They were.
Yeah, well, we had a meeting, it was a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee and the School Committee and the Superintendent of the Schools. And one of the things that, we had, Donnie Berthium came, our state rep, but Ann didn't show up. I think she had a conflict, so it really wasn't a refusal to show up. But one of the things that's very troubling for us is if a student wants to go to a school for a program that's not offered by the school, the town has to pay. And we're over $100,000 for 2 students because you pay for transportation and you pay for tuition. And my opinion is if this child wants something that's not offered by our school or Bay Path, our affiliate, that should be on the parents. I don't know why the rest of the town has to pay for one individual student. Just my opinion, I'm sure everybody differs, but.
And you're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. I mean, but by the same token, it's, you know, I don't know the individual, I don't know the individual parent. For a parent to come up with $134,000 is impossible also.
Well, this is a
If
different
that's the only,
situation.
if that student definitely needs those services, and without them, the prospects of I don't know, failure or whatever is, then, you know, that, it's just, I really am unhappy with the way the school funding has been pushed aside, and just not tackled. And the mandates that are unfunded on towns and things like this, those upset me. But as a teacher, you know, I have some certain empathy with parents who do need special programs, and
Yeah, the charter school thing hurt us also, that.
oh yeah, no, definitely.
They said, oh, it's not gonna cost the towns anything, and all of a sudden we're
Yeah,
stuck
no,
with a
no, no,
$90,000 bill, so.
You don't even want to get me started on that.
Doug?
Could we ask the school committee to perhaps come up with some alternatives? And the reason I say this, and I know nothing about this, but I do know this woman in another town who has a child with a situation that seems very similar to what you're describing here. And that child actually travels from this town close to us to near Boston daily, but it's somehow subsidized by the state for doing that. She can't afford it.
Well, this child here with the special ed money comes back to us in Circuit Breaker. That's a program for the schools. So the problem is, it comes out of this year's budget, and Circuit Breaker reimburses for next year, so there needs to be some funding now, because there's a shortfall,
Right,
so.
but it would seem that our town is not unique, that almost every town probably has a few individuals, few children in this situation. And they're all facing exactly what perhaps what you just described.
Well, that's why we
but-
want the stabilization account. So if you do the stabilization account, when we put money away, like we had What do we have, 700 certified free cash come back to us, and we put it into stabilization and capital stabilization. If we had the school stabilization, we could put money into that, so when these things do come up and affect us, the money's there. You know, we're not taking it out of otherwise held money in other places, so it might be worth establishing something like that, putting some seed money in. Anything else? What else we got? Another announcement. You wanna do the need help with home repairs? I think this is a CMRPC thing, or?
All right. Looking for help with home repairs? The town of North Brookfield is now applying for grant funds to continue its housing rehabilitation program. A sign-up form with more information about the program is attached. The North Brookfield Senior Center, 29 Forest Street, will also host an information session on Wednesday, January 9th, 2019, during lunch.
Right, so we'll put that on, we're gonna have that on cable access? We
It
gotta
is.
have that too.
It
Okay,
is, yep, and
we
it's
got
on the webpage.
it. All right,
So that's tomorrow, by the way, if anyone doesn't know.
and the last announcement is, 2019 dog licenses are now available, town clerk's office, Tuesday and Thursday, noon to 3, Tuesday evening, 5 to 8. You can now apply through the mail, send a self-addressed stamped envelope for the return. Fees are $8 for spayed or neutered, $12 otherwise. Late fees will start applying after June 1st, $5 after September 1st, $25. So you can get a jump start on the licensing. And I think that's it. Anything else to come before the board?
That's it.
We're all in and done. Going once.
We're good?
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made second, all in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.